Hello, I'm Paul Dayton. I'm here to talk to you about my book, Socialism, the Gift That Keeps on Taking. It's my second book. You can learn more about this, my first book, other interviews I've done, and lots of cool stuff at my website, pauldayton.us. That's Dayton, pauldayton.us. There are three themes throughout the course of history that are sort of illustrated through evidence throughout this book. One is the fallacy of the lamp, which is the fantasy that people have that they're sold by populist redistributive politicians, that they, this will, all of your wishes will be granted. You personally will be able to, the class of people who say, well, I paid taxes all my life, so therefore I should be able to get whatever I want whenever I want, right? It'll grant all my wishes. It'll turn over all my rights and freedoms today, and later you'll let me do whatever I want to rub the lamp, and it'll grant all my wishes personally. Well, of course, when 7 billion people on the earth all rub the lamp and make 7 billion different wishes, almost none of them are going to come true. Another theme is the idea of chaining the beast. The beast is the state, the government. Chain the beast and unchain the citizenry. What you have are people giving up their rights and freedoms, shackling themselves. I won't have the right to choose my own job. I won't have the right to negotiate my own contracts. I don't have the right to, there's a shackle on this hand, a shackle on that hand. Shackling their feet. I won't be able to make my own choices with healthcare or in housing and so forth. All these shackles on the people are all liberating the beast. We got to shackle the beast and free the people. So that there can be the most prosperity, which we know for certain, as a matter of fact, has always been the most common outcome when such action is taken, and the inverse outcome is the case when the state is liberated and the people are shackled. And the third idea is the state tightening or loosening its grip upon the windpipe of the citizenry. More tax and regulation tightens that grip, chokes things off. There's less prosperity, it's less healthy. The money doesn't move from one class to the other, from one element to another, and people don't move classes from one class to another nearly as well when there's a tight grip of tax and regulation upon the windpipe of the people. When you loosen up that grip, what they call deregulation is just increase of liberty. It's unshackling the beast, unshackling the people and reshackling the beast, putting those shackles where they belong. Today we're going to talk about the fallacy of the lamp a little bit. I'm going to read you a couple of pages from the introduction of that portion of the book, and that'll be today's video. So here we see it's part 3 of this big beast here. Part 3, the fallacy of the lamp. Begins with a quote from noted author Pete Bauer. Quote, "The successful pursuit of the unholy grail of economic equality would exchange the promised reduction or removal of differences in outcome and wealth for much greater actual inequality of power between rulers and subjects. This is an underlying contradiction in egalitarianism in open societies." End quote. And that's exactly correct. I begin. One of the incredibly successful prevailing popular fictions apropos of socialism, though insultingly false, is what can be described as the fallacy of the lamp. This moniker draws from fables which tell of a person rubbing a magic lamp and having their wishes granted. Many are suffering under the delusion that all of the power will be concentrated into the hands of the few by decree, and that all of this concentrated power will serve themselves personally. Their own myopia masquerading as charitability. The United States is a nation which in 2020 had a population of 330 million people, and the world in that same year had an estimated population of approximately 7 billion people. When hundreds of millions or billions of people each make their own individual, self-serving wishes, they are bound to conflict with and to contradict each other ceaselessly. The farmers wish for sun and rain, while petty burglars wish for darkness and dry conditions in order to provide cover for their movements. In the end, the concentration of power into the hands of the few by decree, a necessity of wokernism, only grants the wishes of those holding power in the government. All others have no rights other than to obey the whims and dictates of the bureaucrats, their wish for socialism having been granted, and now results in eternal privation of future wish granting. a classic example of another old fable involving a pact with the devil. As central planning takes a more prominent role in a country, the strings attached to the handouts inevitably infringe upon the human rights of the citizenry. The citizens become property of the government, which in practice, of course, makes them property of whatever small group happens to occupy seats in the government at a present moment. Promises of free health care for all inevitably lead to both rationing and slavery, since the planners never do a better job than those who function in a diverse assortment of much smaller groups, each planning for its own benefit, are able to do. The evidence dictates the conclusion, and no other. Dictates this conclusion, and no other. The prevalence of death panels in which the rationing of the state-seized healthcare goes to the length of having meetings in which bureaucrats look over the patient folders of those who have been diagnosed as near terminal, who are in need of life-saving care, then decide which are going to be denied, irrespective of means to pay, or the willingness of a physician to accept said payment for the job. The limitation on childbirths, including execution of infants, known as infanticide, and forced abortions, are well known under such conditions. People are still denied care in centrally planned healthcare schemes. This is not a problem that is solved by implementing monopolized medicine. Freedom of choice is certainly not present in any aspect of healthcare under such a scheme. One is always perpetually limited to the menu provided by the state, and on whatever terms are dictated by the state. One cannot simply work harder or use their ingenuity to create something useful to people so that the inventory of said products could raise money to buy what one wants. If it's not your money, it's not your choice. For more on this, you can see a note I have in the back of the book. An interesting example of a populist movement delivering negative outcomes to its followers took place during the 1970s in the USA. The populist trend known as women's lib drove down female wages in the immediate term. In a book first published in 1975, Brad Schiller notes that the media campaign called Women's Lib increased female demand for jobs, in response to their being prompted to do so by massive advertising campaigns simply for the sake of having a job and thus participating in the trend. With an abundance of supply, combined with their eagerness to be part of the fad, coalescing to make for a buyer's market, in which a reduction of the dollar value of the wage rates necessary to satisfy the applicants was resultant. The already eager sellers, when coupled with a glut in supply, drove down prices for those doing the buying, delivering a negative outcome to those who rubbed the lamp and wished for high-paying jobs. Some will merely show an average wage for women, contrasted with an average wage for men, to conclude that gender discrimination, or that phantom monster called the patriarchy, must be the reason for any differences. In fact, market forces are the most reasonable explanation for such inequalities. So ends the introduction to that section. Next we see here labor monopolies, castes, and wage controls, about which we will learn more in a forthcoming video. You can learn more about that, to learn about this in total, by picking up a copy of Socialism, the Gift That Keeps on Taking. You can go to my website, pauldayton.us, for ways to get that or get other free excerpts, and hope you have a great day. Thanks for joining me.